There is a set of rules for selecting maidservants in large families. They must have a proper appearance. Those with a seductive look are not to be kept, as they may interfere with the master's relationships, but they cannot be too ugly either, lest they disgust the masters. They must not be too cunning. They should be honest and, ideally, have no one to rely on, so they cannot stir up trouble. It still requires deliberate cultivation. When the master needs you, beckon and come. And when the master doesn't need you, obediently serve as a maid. Thus, having rosy lips and pearly teeth, a proper appearance, and being well behaved became the selection criteria. When the old madam was making her selection, she thought I looked very upright, with rosy lips and pearly teeth, clear and delicate features, quite proper in demeanor, not seductive, and not particularly talkative, so she specifically chose me to raise by her side. Making early preparations for her legitimate grandson. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins. The old madam's legitimate grandson could be described as a celestial being. Although the master had 5 sons in total, only this one was legitimate and exceptionally intelligent. At the age of 10, he conversed fluently with the current emperor in the Golden Hall, and by 15, he had passed the imperial examination with the highest honors, becoming the top scholar and entering the court as an official. The current position is the deputy minister of Dali Temple, a third-rank official. Although the Marquis of Yongi's residence is also one of the top-ranking noble households, it is ultimately an inherited title, with each generation declining from the last. Having produced a figure like the young master in this generation can be considered the glory of the entire Marquis of Yongi's household. With such honor brought to the family, the old madam has long had plans for the young master's marriage. However, this year the young master is already 22, yet his mind is not on marriage. The old lady was anxious at heart, but she couldn't say anything on the surface. After all, the young master was ambitious, with a promotion in sight, and she couldn't discourage his drive to advance. I set down a cup of lightly fragrant Biluo-chun tea and stood respectfully by the old lady's side with my hands at my sides. The old lady closed her eyes, her fingers moving over the beads of her Buddhist rosary. Yujin, you should go to Shaoxi's side tonight. Jiyu Shaoxi was the young master's name. My heart trembled, and I responded softly, adding, the young master has been meeting with his colleagues in the study late into the night these past 2 days. I'm afraid he has no such intention. You're grown up now, and Shaoxi is no longer a child either. Yes, I entered the household at the age of 10 and have always stayed by the old madam's side. To be honest, I am grateful to her, for she trained me, so I never had to do the dirty or heavy work. She occasionally tutored me in poetry and literature. Saying the young master preferred learned women, and I couldn't afford to be ignorant and earn his disdain. Thus, my life was even more comfortable than that of the illegitimate daughters in the Marquis of Yongi's household. By nightfall, when I arrived at the young master's courtyard, it was already late. He was still handling official duties in his study, and I didn't dare disturb him, so I went to wait in his room. The candle had burned more than halfway down before the young master finally made his belated appearance. He wore a moon-white robe, and as the night wind grew cold, he added a cloak of the same color. His slender figure was elongated by the moonlight. The young man stood tall and straight, with cool, clear eyes and thin lips slightly pressed together, radiant as the moon after a storm. A modest gentleman, gentle and refined, even if all the beautiful words in the world were placed upon him, they could not fully capture his graceful and elegant demeanor. Seeing me waiting here, he frowned slightly. What are you doing here? I lowered my head, thinking he must be displeased. I spoke very cautiously. The old lady noticed that the young master has been working hard day and night, so she sent me to serve you. I don't need anyone to serve me. You should go back to grandmother and take care of her instead. He sat down alone and poured himself a cup of tea. Sure enough, he doesn't care about this matter, but it's precisely because he doesn't care that the old lady sent me here. How could I be dismissed with just a word from him? If I become useless to him here, then the only path left for me is to be driven out. I steeled myself, walked behind him. Serving others is something I've been learning since I entered the mansion at the age of 10. Her voice was soft and light. The tea is hot. Young master, be careful. You've had a long day, let me massage your shoulders and ease your muscles. My wrist was grabbed with considerable force. I frowned slightly and looked at him in confusion. He seemed as if burned by something. Releasing his grip, his voice still cold, I said, it's not needed, you may leave. It didn't work, however. If the old lady succeeds, she won't have to worry so much. I lowered myself slightly, bowed, and then went to the servants' quarters, although I serve by the old lady's side. I still share a room with several senior maids in the mansion. Because I am not good with words, they all have a distant relationship with me, except for one who has long been at odds with me, that is Queek. Back then, she was exceptionally beautiful, but because she talked too much and the old lady disliked her, she lost her chance, so she holds a grudge against me. Oh, I heard you went to the young master's room today. What? Came back with nothing accomplished. Seems you're not up to it either. Sparrow sneered. Sparrow Smoke, standing nearby, tugged at her sleeve, signaling her to stop, but the more she was held back, the more brazen she became. What? Can't we even talk if she failed? Just look at what kind of person the young master is. And she thinks just because she was raised in the old madam's presence for 6 years, she's more precious than a master, believing the young master would fancy her. Enough already, Eugen was chosen by the old madam, whether she's good or bad. She'll stay by the young master's side. Some people can only dream their whole lives without ever reaching that position. Another senior maid, Tsueyun, spoke up for me. Though she was the most mediocre among the maids, for some reason, she particularly enjoyed flattering me, always trying to win me over to oppose Queek. I shook my head at her, signaling her to stop. It didn't matter to me what Queek said about me, nor did I care about their quarrels. I don't want to deal with them for the rest of my life anyway. In short, I will leave this Marquis of Yonghi's residence. Ignoring them, I didn't even bother to open my mouth to argue. I straightened the quilt and lay down. Early the next morning, before dawn, I got up and went to the young master's small kitchen to stew a silver ear, lotus seed, and lily soup for him. The silver ear was extremely difficult to gelatinize, so I squatted by the small stove, dozing off while simmering it. I timed it to bring it to his study just as the young master was returning from court. He was indeed there. But there were also a few of his colleagues with him. I put down the soup, my face slightly flushed, and lowered my head. I didn't know there were esteemed guests visiting today, so I only prepared one bowl of soup. It's truly impolite. What kind of tea would you all prefer? I'll go brew it right away. A young man with a clear and handsome appearance beside me spoke with a somewhat flippant tone. Since when did Brother Gu have such a delightful person in his courtyard, hiding her from us? No wonder you're so deep and mysterious. I looked up in a fluster and met the young master's deep, pond-like gaze. His voice was just as cold. Get out of here. I had intended to earn some favor, but instead, I ran into a rebuff. I am so considerate, serving him soup and pouring water. Yet the young master's affection for me diminishes day by day. I'm starting to lose my patience. The old madam has sent someone to urge me several times. Eugen, as long as you stay by Xiaoxi's side until the new wife enters the household, I will give you your freedom papers. Whether you stay or leave will be up to you then. But you must also fulfill your proper duties. This is the promise the old madam gave me, and also my reason for pleasing the young master. When the old madam urged me again, I had no other choice. That night, I brought a pot of warm wine to him. The dew is heavy in the early autumn night. Young master, have some warm wine to heat yourself up. The warm wine was poured into the cup, emitting a rising steam, misty and hazy, making it hard to see clearly. Because I had been taking care of his daily needs all this time, he didn't suspect anything and picked up the cup to drink. I poured 2 more cups, and he drank them all. Watching him finish it all, I breathed a sigh of relief, closed the windows and doors tightly, and bolted the door. Gu Xiaoxi looked at me warily. Aren't you going back to rest? He meant that I should return to the servants' quarters. It's too late. Let me help you to bed, young master. He lowered his gaze, looking at me earnestly, his voice carrying a hint of helplessness. Don't be like this, Eugen. It wasn't the first time he had called my name, but it was the first time he had done so when we were alone. I heard his breathing quicken, and the palm holding my hand grew burning hot. He also realized something was wrong. The wine was brought to me by the old madam through qui wherewith macronen. In that moment, I understood her intentions. With trembling hands, I removed his outer robe. Young master, let this servant attend to you. Lifting my gaze, his expression remained icy, yet the breath he exhaled grew scorching hot. I beg you, young master. When I woke up the next day, it was already noon, and the spot beside the bed had long gone cold. I gritted my teeth, silent and uncomplaining, tidied the room, and presented the handkerchief to the old madam. She was quite pleased and told me to rest for a few days, so I didn't have to attend to the young master. I slept the entire day and woke up in the evening. No one had called me for meals, so I naturally missed them. As a servant, if I missed a meal, there was nothing to eat. I just had to go hungry. I lay back down. If I fell asleep, I wouldn't feel the hunger anymore. The door was pushed open, and it was Tsueyen's voice. Why are you still sleeping? The young master has sent for you several times. You should go quickly. Calling for me. Are you sure? Is he calling me to scold me? Tsueyen nodded. Yes. Tsueyen said the young master has asked several times where you are and why you haven't gone to serve him. I quickly got up, straightened my clothes casually, and headed toward the young master's courtyard. Walking to the courtyard, I felt it was inappropriate. So I went to the small kitchen to brew a pot of chrysanthemum and pear tea and brought it over, hoping it would help cool his temper. The young master was in the study, the lamp lit, his eyes serious as he carefully painted with a brush, as if drawing something important. Young master, I called out softly. He seemed somewhat flustered, crumpling the finished rice paper into a ball and tossing it into the corner. When he looked up at me again, his gaze had turned cold. You still remember to come? I haven't seen you all day. Where have you been slacking off? He asked me so many questions at once that I didn't know how to respond. I thought that after what happened last night, he wouldn't want to see me lingering around him, but judging by his demeanor, it was as if last night's events had never occurred. I presented the chrysanthemum and pear tea before him. Please have a cup of sweet tea. He glanced down at the teacup, then looked up at me with a hint of mockery in his eyes. There's nothing wrong with this tea, is there? I quickly shook my head. No, the old lady had achieved her goal and wouldn't pressure me anymore. He took a sip. The chrysanthemum was light. The pear was sweet. This tea suited his taste perfectly. Then he went on copying the calligraphy by himself, leaving me to stand by his side. He called me over, but didn't scold me or ask me to serve him. As darkness fell and the moonlight cast the shadows of tree branches onto the window lattice, my legs grew numb from standing, yet he was still copying. Young master, it's getting late. You should rest early and not strain your eyes. Truth be told, I couldn't bear it any longer, standing here with him, not even daring to breathe too loudly. He gave a non-committal and set down his brush. Attend to me while I rest. I thought I must have misheard. He never allowed anyone to attend to him during his rest. Before this, no one could get close to him. Seeing that I remained silent for a while, he cast a glance over. What? Unwilling. I went to his room and shook out the bedding. He followed me in and closed the door, natural and smooth. I stiffened my back, unsure whether to stand or walk. He, on the other hand, was at ease, spreading his arms and waiting for me to approach. Forgotten how to serve, I had no choice but to brace myself and step forward, hands trembling. I couldn't even undo a single button. The air grew ambiguous. Why weren't you this shy yesterday? My mind went blank with a boom. He remembered everything. I looked up just as he lowered his head, an indescribable feeling hanging between us. After that night, he would call me over to serve him every time he returned from court. He wouldn't let me leave until the next day when he had to go to court again. If he was resting at home, he would also spend the whole day with me in the study, painting and writing. This kind of life lasted for more than a month. From the initial fear, I gradually became accustomed to it, and later even began to enjoy the time spent with him every day. I cannot deny that I have some fondness for him. Whenever we are alone, I can't help but glance sideways at his face, but he tapped my head, telling me to focus on copying the painting. This noble and radiant gentleman, so outstanding, how could I be immune to his charm? Yet I am all too aware of the chasm between us, brought by our differing statuses. Seeing the young master sinking deeper into my world day by day, the old madam finally decided to lay her cards on the table. She called me over and, without stating the reason at first, had Queek bring a wooden tray of gold and silver jewelry for me to choose from. Holding my hand, she praised me repeatedly for doing a good job, telling me to pick whatever I liked and that she would give it all to me. I didn't hold back. Once I left the estate, there would be plenty of places to spend money. I took the silver but left the jewelry. The elderly lady was very satisfied and then stated her intention. Xiaoxi is not young anymore. I have taken the liberty to arrange a marriage for him with the legitimate granddaughter of the old Dong family from the cabinet. It is a match befitting Xiaoxi's status. Yes, I replied with downcast eyes and a submissive demeanor. The elderly lady's judgment is naturally the best. Xiaoxi said the same. He has already nodded in agreement. But because the national mourning period for the Empress Dowager's passing has not yet ended, 3 years of mourning remain. The wedding is scheduled for this time next year. In a couple of days, we will go to their residence to finalize the engagement. My hand, hanging by my side, clenched slightly, afraid of being noticed. I slowly relaxed it. The bitterness in my heart felt like the bowls of bitter medicine I drank every day, seeping deep into my bones. I already knew this would be the outcome, but hearing it still left a sour ache in my heart. Perhaps this is just human selfishness at work. Then the old madam took out my deed of servitude. It was agreed back then that if you did well, you'd be free to choose once the new bride entered the household. You've done excellently. So I'm returning this deed to you ahead of time. Whether you stay or go is up to you. I suppose the old madam was worried that the young master's affections lay too much with me, which might cause discord between him and his new wife after the wedding. That's why she wants to send me away now. This is what I have been longing for, and I don't need to wait until the day the new bride enters the household. Trembling with fear, I took the deed of indenture, looking at this piece of paper that defined me as a lowly status, and I was so filled with hatred that tears welled up in my eyes. Thank you, old madam. That night, hearing that the young master was held up in the palace, I packed my belongings, burned the deed of indenture, and left the mansion with the silver the old lady had rewarded me. Cuiyan asked me, "Are you really sure about this? Actually, we can all see that the young master likes you. If you stay, even after the new bride enters, he will make you a concubine. By then, you will no longer be of lowly status. As a respectable concubine, and with a child or two, it would be enough for you to enjoy a lifetime of comfort." I shook my head firmly. My aspirations lie elsewhere. Cuiyan didn't try to persuade me further, but to my surprise, this maid who had always been the most indifferent toward me took out a silver ingot and handed it to me. "I don't plan on leaving the manor in this lifetime. Having too much money is useless anyway. You'll need it more out there. Take it. We've been sisters for so long, no need to stand on ceremony with me." I didn't accept it, because we were fated never to meet again, and I couldn't repay her kindness. Life outside the manor was beyond compare in its freedom. I lost my mother at a young age, and my cheap uncle sold me to the Marquis of Yongyi's household. Naturally, I wouldn't go looking for him, with mountains high and rivers wide. Birds fly freely. Now I am a bird with money and leisure, longing to soar far away. I want to travel and enjoy the scenery first, then find the most suitable place to settle down. Whether it's running a small business or living off my savings, it's best to spend the rest of my life as I please. But in just over a month, I gradually started feeling unwell, tired from walking, tired from sleeping. It was the innkeeper where I was staying who couldn't bear to see me like this and called a doctor for me. But the doctor's words shocked me to the core. He said, "Madam, you are truly bold. You've been pregnant for 2 months and yet you've been traveling over mountains and rivers, completely disregarding the life of the child in your womb." The teacup in my hand fell to the ground, shattering the silence in the room. How could this be? My doubt displeased the doctor. "Madam, although I may be dull-witted and have read many medical books, I am but a wandering physician in the countryside. Yet, your condition is merely a joyful pulse, not some difficult and complicated illness. If you still doubt my diagnosis, perhaps you should seek a more skilled doctor." I'm not questioning his medical skills, but rather questioning myself. Lowering my head and stroking my flat belly, I could hardly believe that a life was growing inside. I had thought I was all alone in this world. But unexpectedly, heaven sent me such a tremendous surprise. I want to keep the child in my belly, not because of the young master, not because of the Marquis of Yongi's household, but simply because I am too lonely. I want a child to accompany me through these long years. Pregnancy means I can no longer live as carefree as before. I stayed in this small town, bought a relatively quiet courtyard, and opened a modest bookstore, with the money the old lady gave me for support. I've been living quite comfortably. The child in my womb has been very considerate. I haven't experienced any discomfort since becoming pregnant. It was the same physician who had been angry with me who examined me, but his expression was no longer as unpleasant. Instead, he comforted me. Life is already hard for women in this world, and you, carrying a child all alone, must be especially careful in all matters, if you don't mind. The child you bear could learn medicine from me. It would be a skill to rely on in life. I naturally thanked him. Since I was to settle down here, maintaining such a relationship was certainly necessary. Day by day passed, and life was relatively quiet and ordinary. However, rumors began to spread in the town that a woman with a swollen belly had arrived, without a husband, likely driven out by her husband's family. Whenever I hear such rumors, I just smile. You can control many things, but you can never control what others say. I have my own way of living, so let them talk. When the child was 7 months along, my body gradually felt heavier. The bookstore hired a scholar to help me manage it, so I rarely went there anymore. I only walked around the courtyard to prevent the fetus from growing too large. The scholar visited me a few times, sometimes bringing his paintings. He was skilled at landscape art, but his talent went unrecognized. And he could only make a living by selling his paintings in this town. I often encourage him, "Sir, your literary talent is extraordinary. One day, you will surely achieve great things." Does Lady Jade truly think so? After being praised, the light in his eyes shone exceptionally bright. I nodded with a smile. I believe he can, but leaving this town is the hardest part for him. I plan to support him in leaving this town after I give birth. It's such a waste for him to only paint in this small town, but before I could give birth, a group of people flooded into the courtyard, each one a robust and capable hand. Then, a dignified and elegant lady walked in. She looked at me with a cold expression, but smiled when she saw my bulging belly. "Who are you? Trespassing on private property will land you in the magistrate's office." I also sized her up, noticing that she wasn't around the young master's age. Could she be from the Marquis of Yongi's residence, here to cause trouble because she found out I was pregnant? She sat down at the square stone table in the courtyard, her gaze aloof and proud. "Don't be afraid, I'm not a bad person. You should call me your legal mother." This is even more absurd than when she asked me to call her mistress. I laughed. "I don't even have a mother, so how could I have a legal mother? I've already told you that you should call me your legal mother. How can you be so ill-mannered? Speaking of which, you're truly fortunate. Your father had no more children after you. Now that he's dead, you can come home with me and inherit his vast fortune." A pie fell from the sky, and it landed right on my head. My mother was a maid. She did her job well, never fought for anything, never snatched for anything, devoted herself solely to serving her masters, living a life so transparent. My father's family was originally in business. Later, they used money to buy him a minor 9th-rank official post, and it was around that time my mother was bought and brought into the household. My father's mother was a very calculating woman. She knew my father wasn't particularly talented and could only stay in that 9th-rank position, so she wanted him to latch onto someone influential. Opportunity came so quickly. A 4th-rank official who had gone to the capital to report on his duties was returning to his hometown for mourning, bringing his daughter with him. The official's daughter was already 18, which was considered quite old for marriage, and now she had to observe 3 years of mourning. By the time that period ended, she would be 21 or 22, making it even harder for her to marry. But my mother didn't mind. She only wanted my father to latch onto the coattails of this 4th-rank official as his father-in-law, so she repeatedly sought the marriage proposal, even promising that after 3 years, there would be a grand wedding procession with a dowry stretching for miles, welcoming the bride into the family in a magnificent ceremony. And so, this marriage was settled. But 3 years is a long time, and too many unexpected things can happen. The unexpected was that my mother became pregnant. The bride has already been chosen, but she hasn't yet entered the household. It's a major taboo for a concubine to get pregnant before the main wife, however. Their family had few descendants, and the old lady desperately wanted a grandson, so she took the risk and allowed my mother to give birth to me. But I turned out to be a daughter, dashing the old lady's hopes. Fearing blame from the official's family, she drove my mother, who had just given birth, out of the mansion and even slandered her, claiming the child was illegitimate. My mother had nowhere to go and returned to her parents' home. Her brothers and sisters-in-law disliked her, and her father showed no affection. She raised me until I was 5, but her health deteriorated, and she passed away. Before she died, she gave all her valuables and savings to my uncle, begging him to raise me well and find me a good family where I could become the proper wife. That gold and silver finery only bought my uncle's conscience for 5 years. Once those 5 years passed, seeing me grow more and more striking, he sold me to the Marquis of Yonghi's household. Just as his father had sold my mother back then. This past event, I have buried deep in my heart, and I have severed all ties with their family. I'm afraid you've come to the wrong person. I won't go back with you. Find someone else for your vast fortune. Are you really willing to let everything your mother exchanged with her life fall into the hands of others? I didn't know about your mother back then, and by the time I found out, she had already passed away. As she spoke, a trace of regret flickered in the eyes of the legal wife. Your father had no fortune in descendants. He took several concubines, but not one of them bore him a child. You are his only flesh and blood. Come back with me, and the child in your womb won't be called a bastard like you were back then. They will receive a good education and have access to excellent resources. Everything, whatever they desire, will be theirs. And if I refuse, I clenched my hands at my sides. She adjusted her fur coat, her gaze sharp. I'm not negotiating with you. Even if you don't want it, the property that rightfully belongs to you will still be yours. I simply don't want that wealth to fall into the hands of someone I despise even more. I understand now, she doesn't like me. But there are people she dislikes even more. Those more disliked people want to divide up this property, and she found me to spite them. I still followed her and returned to the WN family. There's no need to stay here any longer. Since she was able to find this place, it means she has ways to make it impossible for me to remain. Moreover, I'm currently pregnant, and if anything were to happen, it would be a tragedy of 2 lives. As a woman, pregnant and without a husband, those local troublemakers have already harassed me several times in the past. Thanks to the scholar and the physician for driving them away, but this is not a long-term solution. I have returned to this home where I have never stayed before, a mansion with a grand courtyard truly impressive. With her, the daughter of an official, in charge and supported by immense wealth, the WN family could indeed be considered a wealthy and influential household. Her name was Rong Yang, just over 30 years old, yet she already possessed the dignity one would expect from an elder matriarch. I suppose this is the authority of someone in a high position. She gathered everyone in the WN household and announced that I was the eldest daughter of the WN family. My original name was WN Eugen. The old lady once asked for my name, and I told her it was Eugen. She thought it was a good name, not vulgar, so she kept it. This name was given to me by my mother, Eugen. Eugen, like flawless, pure jade, clear and untainted. She arranged for me a large courtyard with mountains and water, far superior to the house I had bought myself, and assigned over a dozen maids and servants to attend to me. From now on, you will be in charge of the WN household, but you are pregnant and nearing childbirth. Reviewing the accounts and managing the family assets can wait until after you give birth. For now, it's best for you to rest and recuperate. They won't accept me. I knew it clearly. I appeared out of nowhere just because she said with empty words that I am the young lady of the WN household. Does that make it so? Moreover, I have no foundation to rely on, unlike her, who has a father who has retired with honors and an older brother reporting for duty in the capital. Of course, they would love to overthrow you to divide the WN family's wealth, but you have a trump card. She looked at my bulging belly. A daughter who is married off is not entitled to any share of her family's property. How fortunate that you haven't been married off yet, and you were even given your freedom papers and sent away. Now you're pregnant, and this child will be born as a member of the WN family. Who would dare deny that it carries your father's bloodline? She certainly did her homework on my past, even knowing that I was a maidservant and had obtained my freedom papers. Then again, it's not surprising, she has an official for a brother, so she would know these things. And so, I settled into the WN residence. The servants were fairly respectful, after all, they were just doing their jobs for the money, but some people were restless. I finally learned who Rong Yang was referring to when she mentioned those who wanted to divide the WN family's wealth. It was the second and third uncles of the WN family. They are all born of concubines, not sharing the same mother as my father. The old lady disliked them from the start and had them move out to live separately early on. However, because the WN family's business is vast and complex, they have remained connected. It has only been a year since my father passed away, and they are already stirring, eager to divide the WN family and drive away the legitimate wife. But due to the influence of the legitimate wife's maternal family, they haven't succeeded yet. I was offering incense in the ancestral hall when my second and third uncles arrived. 3 sticks of incense were lit and handed to me, but I did not take them. Rongyen urged me, the person is already dead, some rituals should still be observed, not for anything else, but for the sake of the living. I reluctantly took the incense and placed it in the holder. Second uncle and third uncle hurried over and immediately began to slander me. Look, third brother, look at her. In what way does she resemble our brother? She must be a bastard. Sister-in-law, you can't just find someone to take over the WN family's power to keep it from falling into others' hands, can you? Besides, she's a woman, and pregnant at that, bringing her into the family. It's hard to tell what her intentions are regarding the WN family's wealth. Every word they spoke was aimed at Rong Yang, because I was brought here by Rong Yang, and because I stand on her side. They can't gain any advantage from this. She seemed to have experienced such scenes many times before, listening to their accusations without even furrowing her brow. How is she not like your short-lived brother? If not like your short-lived brother, doesn't that mean her mean look is just like your late mother-in-law? Can't you see that? I suspect Rong Yang was insulting someone, but I have no evidence, no matter how they argued. The two of them just wouldn't agree to let me become the head of the WN family. The WN family's property is to be inherited by the descendants of the WN family. This is the rule set down by my mother-in-law before her death. She is a daughter of the WN family, and the child in her womb is naturally a descendant of the WN family. Once born, the child can inherit the WN family's property. If you disagree, you can go argue with my mother-in-law in the afterlife. Don't waste your breath here with me. Well, relying on your brother who holds an official position and your father who retired with honors, you dare to twist the truth like this. I couldn't hold back any longer and blurted out, if you two uncles have the ability, you can twist the truth too. The two men's faces turned purple with rage. Rong Yang also glanced at me with a hint of admiration. This is the power of authority. Though reluctant to admit it, it works quite effectively. Rong Yang could control the WN family, bring me back and place me directly in the position of the WN family's young lady, and give me the house keys, all because she had the power of authority. She is not afraid of trouble, she has someone to back her up, and others can't outdo her. This is how confident she is. Yet, such an overbearing woman has a heartbreaking past. I heard from Baya, the maid who serves me closely, that Rong Yang actually has a sweetheart, but he is just a poor scholar. Her family looks down on him, and she refuses to compromise, stubbornly delaying marriage until her late teens. After her grandmother passed away, requiring a period of mourning, she intended to delay marriage until her late 20s, hoping to marry that scholar and silence her father's objections. But fate had other plans. A sudden illness took the poor scholar's life. She stayed in her hometown with her father to observe the mourning period, not even getting to see him one last time. Later, with a heart turned to ashes, she followed her father's arrangements and married into the WN family, only to find herself in another den of wolves. My father was a man of many affections, and he looked down on her for being in her late 20s when she married into the family. Within a year, he took 2 concubines, and as time went on, the number of concubines only grew. Her heart had already died, It no longer mattered to her how many women my father took. She lived only for the sake of her Rong family. Jiao was born at the end of the year, when the cold winds were blowing fiercely, but the heated floors in the mansion kept everything warm. Rong Yang carefully held the newborn child, the coldness on her face melting into a smile. She said, "I never had the fortune of having descendants, never had a child of my own in this lifetime. Seeing you give birth truly brings me joy." Perhaps she was lamenting her younger self. Jiao was as easy to care for as when he was in the womb. With 2 wet nurses looking after him, not causing any trouble at all, Rong Yang likes him, and she actually spends more time with him than I, his biological mother, do. I began to take over the WN family's business and started to familiarize myself with its operations. Actually, I had some exposure to these matters before giving birth, but it was only through reviewing account books and storefronts. I never actually visited the shops in person. Now that I've given birth, it's time to pull myself together. Externally, I need to deal with the covetous second and third uncles, and internally, I must inspect our family's shops to guard against internal thieves. Rongyan's heart was with Jiao, so she followed me. I then began to go out to inspect the shops. The WN family's businesses are spread throughout the dynasty, ranging from large-scale antique shops and banks to small general stores and inns, all of which are part of the WN family's enterprises, and so I started investigating from those around me, gradually expanding outward. This investigation lasted for 5 years. 5 years later, I returned to the WN family again. No sooner had I stepped down from the carriage than Rongyan rushed out in a flurry, calling for someone to fetch a fur coat to block the chilly wind, only to drape it over the little one behind me. She scolded me relentlessly. "You, just look at you. Why on earth did you have to take Jiao along to check on the business? He's only 5 years old, bouncing around with you and suffering hardships at such a tender age. I was only away for 5 days this time, just to the neighboring town." The way she said it, you'd think I had taken Jiao away for 5 years. Never mind that. From now on, if you need to go, go by yourself. Don't take my Jiao with you. I've been busy with business since Jiao was born, and she's the one who has been taking care of Jiao, so I should love Jiao even more. Jiao has a sweet mouth, hugging her neck and acting coquettishly. "Grandma, Jiao misses you so much. It feels like I haven't seen you for many autumns. Oh my Jiao, my darling." Rong Yang was overjoyed. "Grandma will take you to play. Grandma will take you to see. What should I call my brother?" Rong Yang turned to ask me. I shook my head. "I don't know. Call him grandfather." I hadn't figured out the family hierarchy and didn't know how to address him. He should be called great-uncle. The coachman beside me interjected, "Jiao, be good. Your great-uncle has returned from the capital for a holiday. Shall Grandma take you to play with him? I heard he even brought a friend from the capital. Grandma will take you to meet them." No. Jiao wants to stay home with Grandma to watch the fish and listen to stories." All right, we'll do as Jiao says." She took Jiao away without even glancing at me standing by the door. Beer came over and said that Rongyan's brother, Rong Qing, was coming to the WN residence to see his sister tonight. Since I happened to be back, I should also prepare to receive him. Someone from the capital. A figure flashed through my mind, and I shook my head with a bitter smile. 6 years had passed. He wouldn't remember me anymore. By that time, he must have been married for 5 years. Right, his child would only be a year or two younger than Jiao. Realizing what I was thinking, I quickly snapped back to reality. I shouldn't be thinking about him anymore. Rong Qing now holds a third-rank official position, a very high rank. Even his father retired with a lower rank than he currently holds. Therefore, the WN residence had everything prepared with great care, leaving no room for error. Although he came to the WN residence to see his sister, the WN family could not afford to be discourteous, so that night, the WN residence was exceptionally lively, and I also dressed up deliberately. Wearing something more luxurious, Rongyan went ahead to greet her brother. While I held Jiao's hand and walked out, she carefully instructed, "Jiao, we have an important guest at home today. Don't be mischievous, be good. Later, I'll take you to the backyard to pick Osmanthus flowers." "All right," Jiao nodded seriously, and when he looked up toward the door, his childish voice carried sincerity. "What a handsome uncle. I smiled and looked up, thinking he must be referring to Rongqing. The smile on my lips froze as I looked at the man before me, just as gaunt as I remembered, yet the aura around him seemed even colder, his face more mature, and he appeared more composed than he had been 6 years ago. His cool gaze first looked at Jaeor, then fell upon me, chillingly terrifying. Rong Yang, still unaware, introduced, "This is my daughter, the head of our WN family, and this is her child." Jaeor, hearing the precise introduction, his eyes darkened, as if growing even colder. He opened his mouth, his voice indifferent, "Seeing your daughter so young, I didn't expect her child to be this old already." "Yes, her child, 4 years old, he's only 4 years old." Rong Yang looked at me in confusion, then at Jiyu Shaoxi, not understanding what was going on. Jiyu Shaoxi chuckled lightly, with a hint of sarcasm. "Impressive skills." "What skills?" Rongqing interrupted, a tall and burly man stepping forward. "Brother Jiyu, why do you say that? I haven't introduced you yet." Jiyu Shaoxi is now a second-rank official, the Right Vice Minister of the Ministry of Justice, a highly influential figure in the capital. "Sister, you must take good care of him." "So he has indeed been promoted." I slowly bowed in greeting. Commoner WN Yujin pays her respects to Lord Jiyu. He gave me a cold, piercing glance before being dragged away by Rongqing to the banquet outside. I had blurted out that Jiao was 4 years old out of selfishness, a selfish desire to keep him from knowing I had borne his child. Rong Yang was naturally overjoyed to see her family, chatting and toasting Rongqing enthusiastically. Meanwhile, I sat restlessly with Jiao. Jiao was getting sleepy, rubbing his eyes. Seizing the opportunity, I stood up and apologized. "The child is mischievous and might fuss when tired. I'll take him to sleep now. Please enjoy the meal, everyone." "Shouldn't the nanny handle a sleepy child? As the host, shouldn't you stay and accompany us for the meal?" Jiyu Shaoxi poured himself a drink, his phoenix eyes lifting with an emotion I couldn't decipher. Rong Yang chimed in, "Exactly, usually, it's the nanny who puts him to sleep, and most of the time, I'm the one holding him." "Since when have you been so concerned?" For the first time, I felt that Rong Yang was a bit too outspoken. Her perked-up bottom settled back down. Jiao was taken away by the nanny, and Jiyu Shaoxi sat across from me drinking. He drank every toast offered to him, and before long, he seemed a bit unsteady on his seat. "Someone, take Lord Jiyu to sober up." I couldn't stand it any longer. The WN residence is large, and I fear the path is dark. Would Miss WN be willing to lead the way? There was no avoiding it. I had no choice but to rise and lead him to the rear pavilion to sober up. I carried a lotus lantern, walking ahead, the man behind me stumbling with uneven steps, seemingly heavily drunk. I thought about helping him, but ultimately felt it wasn't appropriate given our positions. As we reached the rockery, my shoulder was grabbed, and the lantern fell from my hand. "You're doing quite well, very well indeed." Under the moonlight, his dark eyes were hazy with drunkenness. "I have no idea what Lord Jiyu is talking about," I said, turning my head away. The rockery was pressing painfully against my back. "Pretending. So skilled at pretending. Were you always like this before?" He reached out, gently lifting my long hair and playing with it in his hand. "So, I'm just another one of your playthings, right?" I frowned, thinking he must be terribly drunk. How did this suddenly have anything to do with being a plaything? "Lord Jiyu. Try saying that again." His tone carried a threat. "Young master, admitting it now, I thought you were going to pretend you didn't know me for the rest of your life." A flicker of hurt passed through his eyes. "Young master, I am no longer of humble status and have been recognized by the WN family. I haven't yet thanked you for your kindness and care back then." I spoke the truth. Although I only spent a few months with him back then, he never treated me harshly. He was gentle with me, never treating me like a servant, and often taught me calligraphy and painting. I remember everything. "So you just ran away, to repay my kindness?" He leaned in close, carrying the scent of alcohol. I wanted to escape, but he held me down firmly. "Yujin is just a servant, and now that she has given birth, why cling to her? If the young master's family finds out, they certainly won't let it slide." These words indeed had an effect. The hand pressing on my shoulder released, and as my body lightened, he stepped back several paces. "You have such a cruel heart. After 6 years apart, Your child is already 4 years old. You found another man, started a new life, and still pretend not to know me." My heart ached, and I wanted to reach out to him, but in the end, I held back. He turned and disappeared into the vast night. I crouched down, picked up the extinguished lantern, and went to find someone to relight it, returning to the front hall. Most of the guests had already dispersed. Rong Yang and Rong Qing, the siblings, were still drinking merrily. I sent someone to look for Jiyu Shaoxi. The WN residence was indeed very large, and since it was his first time here, I was afraid he might get lost. I then stepped forward and took their wine cups away. "It's late, Lord Rong. You should rest early. Stepmother, you should go accompany Jiao now." "Oh right, brother, I still need to accompany Jiao. Jiao is my life now, my son." "Talking nonsense. Jiao is your grandson." Fortunately, Rong Qing wasn't confused. Slurring his words, he patted Rong Yang's shoulder. "But, what do you think of my brother? If you follow him, you can come to the capital with me." "Well, not very sober, brother. He looks so much younger than me. It's like we're from different generations. What if he just likes your type? Anyway, Jiyu Shaoxi is the kind of person who must have a woman from our family." Rong Yang shook her head and suddenly pointed at me. "Brother, you're being foolish. If I'm not suitable, we can give him my daughter. If my daughter gets him, it's still our family's gain." The more she spoke, the more outrageous it became. Rong Qing glanced at me and nodded. "All right, then it's for your daughter, after all. Family wealth shouldn't go to outsiders. When the time comes, with one of us at the 3rd rank and the other at the 2nd rank, let's see who would dare bully us." I rubbed my forehead, feeling a headache coming on. I hadn't expected Rong Qing to be just like his sister, but then again, it wasn't surprising. Since they came from the same mother, I called for someone to help support the two of them. "Stepmother, it's time to rest." Seeing how drunk she was in this state, she wouldn't be able to coax Jiao to sleep tonight. After finally arranging for Rong Yang and Rong Qing to rest, I made a special trip to Jiao's courtyard. Jiao had already been lulled to sleep by his wet nurse. Watching Jiao in his sleep, I felt a faint unease in my heart. Jiao resembled Jiyu Shaoxi far too much. Even though he was only 5 years old, his cleverness and appearance were strikingly similar to Jiyu Shaoxi's. I'm afraid that if too much time passes, he might notice something. Fortunately, this time Rong Qing came back to see his sister and is only staying at the WN residence for 2 days. After some thought, I decided to have Rong Yang arrange for Rong Qing and Jiyu Shaoxi to return to the Rong family tomorrow. Early the next morning, to avoid Jiyu Shaoxi, I took Jiao out early, saying we were going shopping to look for a storefront, but unexpectedly, I happened to run into Jiyu Shaoxi, who was also out for a stroll. At that time, I was arguing with the 3rd uncle of the WN family. The 2nd and 3rd uncles of the WN family heard that Rong Qing had returned, thinking that Rong Qing would take Rong Yang to the capital, so I would have no one to rely on by then, and they deliberately came to intimidate me. "Good niece, some things are yours if they belong to you, and if they don't, you won't be able to keep them in the end." Facing 3rd Uncle Wan's pair of beady little eyes, my mind wandered. Thankfully, my looks take after my mother and not my father. Otherwise, good niece, I've tried to reason with you in every way. And you should understand what I mean. If you know what's good for you, hand over half of the WN family's property. Otherwise, once your stepmother is gone, you'll have a hard time. I crouched down, holding Jiao, and said, "Jiao, take a good look at this face. From now on, you are to call him 3rd grandfather." 3rd Uncle WN, hearing me say this, thought I was yielding and seeking peace, a smile spreading across his wrinkled face. My next words were, "Remember, do not have any dealings with such a person. Not only is he of no use, but he will only teach you some low and dirty tricks to use against women. This is hardly what a true gentleman would do." Jiao was very sharp and nodded earnestly. "I remember, mother. What did you say? Is this how you educate your son?" As expected, a little bastard born from a bastard. He was furious. My face darkened, and I was about to retort when, the next second, a tall figure stepped into the shop, exuding authority and anger. "Who said my Jiao has no father?" Jiyu Shaoxi, tall and slender, wore a purple robe, noble and aloof. He looked down at Uncle Wansan with an unwavering, imposing presence. Uncle Wansan was momentarily intimidated by him but quickly remembered this was the WN family's territory and snapped back. "And who are you? Some pale-faced scholar here to back up my widowed niece? You don't need to know who I am. Now, apologize to Jawa." He stepped forward, took Jawa by the hand, and faced WN Larosan with a terrifyingly dark expression. "Why should I?" Before WN Larosan could finish his sentence, Jiyu Shaosai grabbed his arm and, with a forceful twist, dislocated his shoulder. Accustomed to a life of luxury, WN Larosan had never been treated like this before. He immediately grimaced in pain. "Let go of me. Ouch, my arm. If you still refuse to apologize, I'll dislocate your other shoulder. If you still don't, I'll break your legs." Jiyu Shaosai meant what he said. The next moment, he grabbed WN Larosan's arm and pinned him to the ground. "Oh dear, dear niece. Your third uncle here just had too much to drink and spouted some nonsense. You know I have a foul mouth, so please forgive your uncle." Seeing him beg for mercy so pitifully, the hatred in my heart subsided a little. I smiled and said, "It's fine to get drunk once in a while, but only a harsh lesson will make one realize how much trouble drunkenness can cause. Don't you think so, third Uncle WN?" With the last layer of pretense torn away, I no longer wished to feign gentleness and calm, because he crossed my bottom line. Perhaps my tone was a bit harsh, but Jiyu Shaoxi applied force and dislocated WN Larosan's other arm. He cursed harshly and even threatened to report us to the authorities. Ridiculous. Jiyu Shaoxi is a second-rank official in the court. Who would dare cause trouble for him? Now, I've had my moment of flaunting power. I turned to thank Jiyu Shaoxi, but he blocked my way. "Are you really going to let this child grow up without a father? He doesn't need one," I replied coldly. Jawa stepped forward first. "Uncle, everyone says I don't have a father. Is that true?" My heart ached along with it. "Jawa," Jiyu Shaoxi crouched down to meet Jawa at eye level, smiling gently. "Without a father, how could there be a child? It's your father who wronged your mother, so she's angry and won't let you acknowledge him." Jiyu Shaoxi, what are these two trying to pull? Although Jawa is clever, he's only 5 years old and only half understands these words. I want to return to the residence, and Jiyu Shaoxi also came back along the way, but he followed all the way to our courtyard. Yet still showed no intention of leaving. I wanted to close the courtyard gate, but he reached out to stop it, his gaze soft, with a hint of redness at the corners of his eyes. "Eugen, if I say I am willing to propose to you with a grand bridal procession, would you be willing to come back with me, young master? You and I are both part of the past. Why cling to it? Between him and me, the gap is as vast as heaven and earth, and in the end, there is no future." That evening during the meal, Rong Yang offered a toast again. She had learned of the day's events and was naturally pleased that WN Larosan had bullied her precious grandson, and it wasn't over yet. It was originally agreed that Rong Qing and Jiyu Shaoxi would be sent back to the Rong mansion in 2 days. But somehow Jiyu Shaoxi caught a cold and coughed incessantly every day. Rong Yang, afraid that others would say she hadn't taken good care of them, kept them for 2 more days. My heart felt as anxious as ants on a hot pan. As long as Jiyu Shaoxi didn't leave, my heart couldn't be at ease. That fellow Jiyu Shaoxi is too good at pretending. He claimed to have caught a cold, yet he still came to play with my Jaeor. They are father and son by blood, sharing many similarities. Despite a gap of over 20 years in age, the two of them play together without any sense of distance. Jawa, who used to cling to Rongyang the most, now clings to Jiyu Shaoxi the most. Jiyu Shaoxi would carry him up trees, take him shopping, and even hoist him on his shoulders. I couldn't stand it anymore and went to talk to Rongyang, asking if we could make Jiyu Shaoxi leave. Rongyang was surprised by my lack of composure. I've always been steady, yet Jiyu Shaoxi has only stayed at home for a few days. Why do I dislike him so much? I couldn't explain the reason and had to swallow my frustration. Returning to my courtyard, the exhaustion of the day washed over me. I shed my disguise, slumped into a chair, and poured myself a cup of tea. From behind, a warm breath swept over me, enveloping me as a pair of strong arms wrapped around my waist. "Who?" I was startled. "I'm truly sorry. The WN residence is so large that I ended up in the wrong room. His tone carried a hint of teasing, yet also a touch of pride. I glanced sideways. The man's beautiful eyes shimmered as he leaned in closer. I've been thinking for a long time, and I still want to ask Miss WN, is Jayor's biological father still around? Him, to me, he was just a tool. Once used, he naturally became useless. Given my current status and position, I have no need for a man. In other words, what kind of man couldn't I have? Why cling to just one? Then, what do you think of the one before you? He is also learned, with a decent appearance. Surely he would be suitable to be Jayor's stepfather, wouldn't he? I thought he was talking nonsense. Drunk, he, a second-rank official of the court, becoming the stepfather of a merchant's son. I didn't take it to heart at all. Pushed him away, and was about to call for someone. Don't shout. His eyes shimmered with deep affection. Don't shout. It took me so much effort to find you here. Well, just a moment ago he claimed he got lost and came to the wrong place. Eugen, you are so heartless. Yet I cannot forget you. A figure as ethereal as an exiled immortal, the future heir of the Marquis of Yonghi's household. Yet he bestows such deep affection upon a woman like me, who has already borne a child. His eyes reflected my image, no longer the youthful face from 6 years ago. Now, I carried the authority befitting a person of high status, and the softness between my brows had vanished, yet the young master before me still bore noble features, radiant and untroubled, his slender frame appearing even more aloof. Lord Gu, I thought you would be reluctant to part with me too, but it seems I overestimated myself, he chuckled, as if mocking his own naivety. So it turns out I mean nothing to you at all. I turned my head away, not daring to meet the hurt in his eyes. After all, it was he who chose to marry someone else back then, and I was just a maid. His presence closed in on me once more, his large hand gripping my chin, refusing to let me evade. I protested urgently. Why must you do this, young master? You should have long been wed to the daughter of the Grand Secretary's family. Why come to entangle with me now? Though I, Eugen, am not from a respectable family, I refuse to be a concubine. If we must lay all cards on the table, then I shall speak plainly. He was clearly taken aback, the haze in his eyes fading, replaced by clarity. Who told you I married the young lady of the Dong family? Wasn't the betrothal made 6 years ago? That's not true. He frowned, then brightened. Did you leave 6 years ago because you heard I was going to marry the young lady of the Dong family? If not her, it would have been someone else. Right, a man like him would never marry someone unworthy. It would always be a noble and distinguished daughter from a prominent family to match him. No, what if I said I haven't married yet? His eyes reddened, his voice trembling slightly. What if I said I've been waiting for you, searching for you all this time? Would you accept me? I looked up and met his starry eyes. In that moment, his gaze held only me. His eyes shimmered, brimming with deep affection. I couldn't believe it. This was a dream I'd had many times. It's always unrealistic. That day I was just delayed in the palace, but when I returned, I could no longer find you. Grandmother said you asked for your freedom papers and left without leaving a single word. So heartless. I truly didn't expect that. Yes, I didn't expect myself to leave so decisively either. Rather than watching him welcome a new bride into the household, I'd rather just walk away. Why has the young master never married? I didn't believe it was because of me, yet my heart trembled, longing for an answer. He chuckled lightly. What if I said it was for a little fox? She really fooled me so badly. My face grew warm, and I lowered my head. I'm not. Did I say it was you? It seems you're well aware that you are that little fox. I wasn't without feelings during these past few days of being together. I should say, I never really forgot him. It's just that his reappearance brought the deeply buried memories to the surface, making them vivid once again. Things were heading in an unpredictable direction. The next day, I woke up unusually late. Baya was waiting at the door, and she only entered the room after I got up to open it. Jiu Shaoxi had already left at some point, unnoticed. Beer leaned in mysteriously and said, "Miss, early this morning I saw that friend of your uncle's, Lord Jiu, sneaking past the entrance of your courtyard. I wonder what he was up to. Should we have someone keep an eye on him?" My face flushed, and I cleared my throat awkwardly, waving my hand dismissively. No need. Perhaps he was just taking a stroll early in the morning with nothing else to do. I never expected Jiyu Shaoxi to leave so late and even be spotted by my maid. Beer still seemed uneasy. Should we inform the madam? No need. If you go and say that the friend her brother brought is sneaky, what would madam think? You make a good point. Miss, let me help you freshen up. You woke up late today, so you must have been exhausted yesterday. Madam and your uncle are already waiting for you in the front hall for breakfast. In the front hall. Everyone at the table could be considered family, except on the surface. Jiyu Shaoxi wasn't. With her brother from her maternal family by her side, Rong Yang had a lot more to say. Jiyu Shaoxi was never one for conversation during meals, preferring to keep his head down and eat. I cast several glances his way, but he never looked back at me. My heart sank a little, wondering if the tenderness of the previous night had only been a dream. After the meal, with nothing else to do, Rong Yang invited Rong Qing to stroll through the garden. The WN estate was vast, especially the rear courtyard, where the landscape was built against the mountain. A natural spring had been channeled to create a large lake, very intriguing. Rong Yang and Rong Qing walked ahead, while I followed behind with Jiyu Shaoxi, keeping a distance that was neither too far nor too close. Watching his straight back, I felt a vague discomfort in my heart. I had strolled through the gardens of the WAN residence many times before and had little interest in them. Feeling down, I kept my head lowered, only watching the path beneath my feet. My hand suddenly warmed, and I looked up. He smiled at me, gave my hand a firm squeeze, and then let go. Very much like a child afraid of being caught by a parent, I look at the two people in front of me. What is he afraid of? Afraid that others might discover our relationship. Rong Yang pulled Rong Qing to see the plum blossoms blooming in full splendor in the plum garden. Jiyu Shaoxi then leaned in and whispered, I've deceived brother Rong many times while trying to get information about you. If he finds out now, he might turn hostile, so we have to take it slow. I glanced at him curiously. A man of his integrity would deceive someone, and many times at that. I'm quite curious about how he managed to deceive Rong Qing. As I walked along, I heard some movement behind the rockery. It was Rong Yang. Have the two of them gotten together yet? How would I know? Why don't you take a peek and see? Rong Qing replied, No, they'll see us again. I've been watching, and honestly, your daughter and brother Jiyu are just not on the same path. They don't even glance at each other. What do you mean not on the same path? Isn't that Jiyu fellow almost 30 and still unmarried because no one wants him? Luckily, he holds a second-rank official position, which makes him a perfect match for my daughter. Don't talk nonsense. Although brother Jiyu isn't married, it's because he doesn't want to be. There are women lining up in the capital hoping to marry him. There are plenty of men who want to marry my daughter. Enough to circle our WN manor twice. Rong Qing gave a thumbs up. Your daughter is truly impressive. Jiyu Shaoxi and I stood not far away, watching these two argue like fools. Jiyu Shaoxi pursed his lips into a smile, tender as a spring bud sprouting. It seems Miss Jiyu has quite a few admirers. Not to be outdone, I threw out these 4 words and quickened my pace to catch up with Rong Yang. How utterly embarrassing. What nonsense about running around the mansion twice. What on earth was she babbling about? I grabbed Rong Yang and scolded her, asking why she had to say such things and cause unnecessary misunderstandings. Rong Yang, knowing that Jiyu Shaoxi and I had overheard, laughed even more triumphantly. I just wanted him to see how popular you are, so he'd hurry up and make a move. What action? Marry you, Eugene. You're just over 20. You don't want to spend your whole life unmarried, just taking care of Jiao, do you? Between him and me. I shook my head as I recalled our past relationship. I don't know. Rong Yang didn't know about my relationship with Jiyu Shaoxi. She only knew that he was a second-rank official. When I returned to the courtyard, I saw Jiyu Shaoxi playing with Jiao. The father and son were throwing stones, competing to see who could throw farther. Every time, Jiyu Shaoxi would go easy on him. His gaze at Jiao held both curiosity and affection. Seeing me return, he stood up and came over. Jiao is very obedient and sensible. Just like you. My son doesn't resemble me. So does he resemble him? I nodded. The nanny just told me that Jiao is 5 years old this year. He walked beside me, his tone filled with joy. I stopped in my tracks and looked up at him. So what? The noble and radiant young man spoke with an air of certainty. So Jawa is my child. Even if he is the young master's child, he is still a child born of a concubine. Returning to the Yongi Marquis manor would not be as comfortable for him as staying with the WN family. In the WAN family, he is the only young master, and no one would mistreat him. I won't let him be considered a child born of a concubine. He is our child, yours and mine. He should inherit the Yongi Marquis manor. I think he must be confused, probably because the wine at the WN residence was too strong. Does he even know what he's saying? The title of Marquis Yongi is an honor that only the eldest legitimate son can inherit, yet he spoke so earnestly, with nothing but sincerity in his expression. He was serious, he wasn't lying to me. My heart wavered once again. Jiyu Shaoxi, by some means or other, had persuaded Rong Qing to stay at the WN residence. What was originally intended as a brief visit had now turned into an extended stay. I admit I was somewhat greedy for such bliss, being able to see him every day. In his free time, he would always play with Jawa. The two of them got along famously, so much so that even Rong Yang grew jealous. She said she had raised this child for 5 years, and in the blink of an eye, he had grown close to someone else, or… Rong Yang frowned as if in thought. Yujin, tell me, why do I feel more and more that Lord Jiyu and Jawa look so alike, as if they were carved from the same mold? Is it that exaggerated? I was taken aback and looked over. I had only thought they were similar before, but that was because I knew their temperaments were alike, both equally intelligent and wise. As for looking exactly the same, I hadn't noticed. Rong Yang nodded and then said, "That's why I said you and Lord Jiyu are a good match. It wasn't just talk. Look, even the child matches him perfectly." I breathed a sigh of relief. So, it was just another attempt to set me up with Jiyu Shaoxi. I lazily grunted in response, only to see Rongyan grow melancholy. Although she was approaching 40, she had maintained herself well. Born into an official's family, she had never suffered hardships, and one might even believe she hadn't yet reached 30. She sat by the railing, propping her chin with one hand. Her usually aloof face had softened, taking on a delicate, feminine quality. With her willow leaf eyebrows slightly furrowed, she gazed at Jiyu Shaoxi and Jawa and sighed. "I've never had the fortune of having children in this lifetime. Whether you keep Jawa by your side or not in the future, promise me that you'll let Jawa be my grandchild." Was she afraid I would run away? Or was she worried I wouldn't acknowledge her as my legal mother? Or is it that women have those few days every month when they feel melancholic and sentimental? You still have a long life ahead of you. Those who leave cannot be kept. But shouldn't you take a good look at those who are still by your side? I glanced toward the groom standing by the small gate. In his free time, he would always stand there, gazing toward the pavilion in the distance. This pavilion was Rong Yang's favorite spot to sit and daydream. Some people and some things don't need to be spoken to clearly. I caught a glimpse of Rong Yang's fleeting shyness and the blush that rose to her cheeks. Rong Yang still had a long life ahead of her. She shouldn't rot away in the WN manor like decaying wood. Me too. After staying at the WN manor for a month, Jiyu Shaoxi was finally urged to leave by a letter from the Marquis of Yongi's residence. When asked why he hadn't returned to the capital to report on his duties after only a fortnight's leave, there was naturally a reason, but it was not convenient for him to explain it in the letter. I still followed Jiyu Shaoxi back to the capital, bringing along 5-year-old Jawa. I temporarily entrusted everything of the WN family to Rong Yang. I simply wanted to fight for myself this once. When the old lady saw me appear with Jaor, her face changed, but not with joy. She looked at Jaor, then at Jiyu Shaoxi, and said to me, "I truly didn't expect you to have such cunning." She thought Jaor was a child I had secretly conceived. I bowed neither humbly nor arrogantly and said, "Greetings, madam." Jiyu Shaoxi spoke before I could. "Grandmother, I brought Yujin back this time to marry her and give her and Jaor a proper status." The old lady snorted coldly, standing at the entrance of the hall with no intention of letting us in. "Marry her, Shaoxi. You are the eldest legitimate grandson of the house of brave and resolute Marquis, destined to inherit the marquisate. With your current glory, you are at the peak of splendor. She, even with a changed name, is merely from a merchant family. How could she ever be a marchioness?" I had long anticipated the old lady's attitude. She would never agree to let me enter the family, because from the very beginning, She never intended for me to stay by the young master's side. Jiyu Shaoxi stood tall, holding Jiawa with one hand and me with the other, his gaze resolute. Grandmother, your grandson is merely informing you. Not making a request. You. The old lady's face flushed red with anger. Jiyu Shaoxi picked up Jiawa, took my hand, and walked past the old lady into the house. No one nearby dared to stop him, allowing Jiyu Shaoxi to take the two of us, mother and child, to his courtyard. 6 years had passed, yet the courtyard remained just as it was before, clean and tidy, without a single extra embellishment, much like the man himself, ignoring the objections of the elderly lady. Jiyu Shaoxi arranged for me and Jaor to stay in his courtyard. An imperial decree summoned Jiyu Shaoxi to the palace, and as soon as he left, the elderly lady could no longer restrain herself and sent someone to call me over. I just didn't expect her to be waiting for me in the ancestral hall. In the Jiyu family ancestral hall, the memorial tablets of the ancestors were arranged, the eternal lamp was lit, and the entire hall was filled with the scent of incense smoke. The elderly lady stood there, fingering her prayer beads. When she heard me arrive, she opened her eyes but did not turn to look at me. Greetings, madam, I bowed gracefully, fulfilling the proper etiquette. Eugen, how old were you when you were brought into the Marquis's mansion? The old lady's question seemed casual, but in reality, it was meant to remind me of the vast difference in status between me and Jiyu Shaoxi. 10 years old, Eugen entered the Marquis's mansion at the age of 10. If I hadn't bought you, where do you think you would have been sold? To a brothel or as a maid in a wealthy household? I don't know. Without you, madam, Eugen might not be alive today, so, I have done you a favor. Yes. The old lady finally turned to look at me. 6 years had passed, and her once elegant face now bore a few more wrinkles. Her hair completely white. If I have done you a favor, why must you repay kindness with enmity? Madam, I have already repaid your kindness. 6 years ago, I did what you asked me to do, but now you've come back, knowing full well that Shaoxi is the hope of the entire Yongyi Marquis household, yet you insist on marrying him. If he marries you, he will ruin his own bright future. His future was never given by the Yongyi Marquis household. The young master is naturally brilliant. Even without being the eldest grandson of the Yongyi Marquis, he could still rise to the top in one step, becoming an official and a minister. Without you, he could climb even higher. Anyway, as long as he doesn't divorce me, I won't divorce him. This is the promise between me and Jiyu Shaoxi. Before leaving, he was afraid I might change my mind. With slightly reddened eyes, he made me swear to always stand by his side and never abandon him. I promised him that as long as he did not give up on me, I would not give up on him. The old lady never expected that my previous submissiveness was all an act. She found me to be a tough nut to crack. After scolding me a few times to no avail, she had no choice but to give up. She couldn't handle me. I am now the head of the wealthy WN family, with a noble mother, a third-rank official in the court as my uncle, and a retired fourth-rank official as my grandfather. Although none of them are blood relatives, these connections are more than enough. A sudden breeze outside the window stirred the apricot tree in the courtyard, making it sway, and the blossoms drifted down with the wind. A gentle breeze brushed my face, and I was momentarily dazed, feeling warmth on my cheek. I turned to meet Jiyu Shaoxi's tender, affectionate gaze. He gently stroked my loose black hair and asked softly, "Did you go to see grandmother?"
People always seem to shrink in the face of wealth. The WN family's dowry filled the entire Yongyi Marquis mansion to the brim. And there still wasn't enough room, so they had to buy the neighboring courtyards on both sides overnight, all just to store the dowry. On the wedding day, the sound of celebratory cannons alone echoed across the entire capital. All the prominent figures from both the court and the common world attended. Even the emperor and empress came to witness the ceremony, not only because the WN family had presented many rare treasures as tribute, but also because Jiyu Shaoxi had been promoted again. Now serving as the crown prince's tutor, after all the elaborate rituals, Jiyu Shaoxi finally entered the bridal chamber and lifted my veil. Though we already had a child, this was my first time getting married, like a maiden riding a bridal sedan for the first time. Both of them couldn't help but blush a little. After following the wedding attendant to complete the ceremonial sharing of the nuptial cup and enduring the wedding guests teasing in the bridal chamber, The room was finally left with just the two of us. Blushing, I said somewhat awkwardly, "Can we hurry it up?" Gu Shaoxi, who had just loosened his belt, was taken aback for a moment, then teased, "What, can't wait any longer?" My unworthy heart raced uncontrollably. No. My stepmother brought several chests of account books and insisted I review them quickly. She's waiting to take them back for reconciliation. TSK, Gu Shaoxi chuckled softly, "Darling, since the WN family is so wealthy, perhaps I should resign from my official post and let you support me. How does that sound?" His brows were gentle, his lips curved into a smile elegant and refined, a gentleman unparalleled in the world, like jade adorning the wilderness. This was the man whom all the young ladies of the capital once dreamed of, a figure as ethereal as an immortal descended to earth. I only remember my useless reply to him, all right, extra story," among the newly purchased maidservants. I spotted her at first glance. Unlike the others, who were either curious or reserved, she was calm and composed, sitting alone on a rock by the lake, eating crispy candy wrapped in oiled paper. I approached her. Her appearance was quite striking, with bright eyes, white teeth, a small rosy mouth, a perky nose bridge, and skin as fair as snow. She noticed me too, seeming to hesitate for a moment as she pondered my identity, then offered me the candy from the oiled paper. I no longer eat these childish treats, but my grandmother dislikes me having sweets, so I've always restrained myself. Somehow, today, seeing the crispy candy held in her slender fingers, I suddenly didn't want to hold back. She seemed to notice my hesitation. "Want some? My uncle bought it." "You have an uncle? Then why were you sold into the mansion? Aren't those sold into servitude usually without family or unable to afford food?" She shook her head. "I don't know, probably because, in his eyes, money matters more than family." "Will you hate him then?" "I don't even know why I asked that," she continued shaking her head, "but I will never forgive him. She has a rebellious spirit." She was different from those who kept their heads down and had long resigned themselves to fate. That was my first impression of her. Later, I often went to see her, bringing her sweet pastries, and learned that she was the one my grandmother had raised for me. At that time, I was secretly delighted. But as I began to move in court circles and learned more, I came to understand how many constraints people face. For instance, even a minister's marriage might not be entirely his own choice. After several visits to my grandmother's place without seeing her, my grandmother kept asking me if I had taken a liking to any young lady from a prominent family, preferably from the Grand Secretariat. The Grand Secretariat held significant influence in the court, and forming a marriage alliance with one of its key ministers could solidify the Marquis of Yongyi's noble status. I only then realized that if I wanted her by my side, to be with me for a lifetime as a devoted pair, it would require immense effort and sacrifice from me. Yet I wasn't sure if this was what she truly wanted, or if I could even give it to her. Later, I did win her over. She became mine. She was obedient, at least in my eyes. I thought she was wholeheartedly devoted to me. I believed she loved me. That day, I knelt in the palace, begging the emperor to grant me an imperial decree to marry my Yujin. Only with the emperor's decree of marriage could such an honor prevent her from suffering any grievances. The emperor told me to bring her to the palace the next day. And only then would he grant the marriage. He wanted to see who had captured his minister's heart so completely. She had no idea how overjoyed I was that night, how eagerly I rushed back to my residence, only to never find her again. Recently, an official named Rong Qing arrived in the capital to report on his duties. His sister married a wealthy merchant who was rich beyond measure, and I heard he was just a minor local official. Unfortunately, he had just passed away, far from being downcast. He asked everyone he met if they knew any outstanding young men suitable for his sister. I had never seen such a brother seeking a husband for his recently deceased sister. After a few encounters, he heard that I had never married and actually set his sights on me. This straightforward man laughed so heartily it seemed as if he might bite someone. I engaged in conversation with him to avoid causing offense, and through our exchanges, I learned many things about the WN family. For instance, his sister had taken back a daughter of the WN family who had been living elsewhere, named WN Yujin, and also, when WN Yujin was first recognized, she was heavily pregnant but had no husband by her side. For example, her child is 5 years old this year. I can't hold back anymore. I've been looking for this person for 6 years. I want to go see him right now. I've used up all the lies of my lifetime on Rong Qing. I say there are too many people nowadays who recklessly claim to be relatives. Especially with the WN family being so wealthy, it's best to be cautious and not get scammed, so we should investigate the whole story thoroughly. So I learned about Yujin's background. including the details of how she was sold into the Yongi Marquis's household by her uncle when she was 10 years old. I also mentioned that I had a dream about a fairy and drew a picture of what she looked like, asking him to see if she was beautiful. He looked at it and slapped his thigh in excitement, saying she looked exactly like the daughter his sister had just recognized and brought back. A smirk tugged at the corner of my mouth, my molars itching with tension. Well, Eugene, I've been searching for you for 6 years, unable to sleep day or night. Yet you've already secretly given birth to our child and started a new life. I lied again, saying I happened to have some time off recently, so why not go back to his sister's place with him? Rome Chingler slapped his thigh again, saying that I would definitely be satisfied once I met his sister. Whether I would be satisfied with his sister or not, I don't know, but I would certainly be satisfied with his sister's daughter. I finally met the one I had been dreaming of day and night for 6 years. She was even more charming than she had been 6 years ago. She even pretended not to know me and acted as if the child wasn't mine, so I became shameless. In the matter of WN Laro-san, I learned that Jawa was her weakness. I treated Jawa well every day. I went all out to be good to Jawa. I lingered at the WN residence. I refused to leave. I held on, believing that I could eventually move her. I was sure I could. No one could stand in the way of me being with Eugene, not even my most respected grandmother. I could be beaten to death by my grandmother in the ancestral hall, but I could not marry my beloved Eugene. My grandmother compromised, as expected. I went to request that imperial decree of marriage that should have been issued 6 years ago. However, the title above needs to be changed. I've been promoted, and she has already become the head of the wealthy WN family, dominating the region, troubling His Majesty to lift a finger. He assigned me the position of junior tutor to the Crown Prince. As for his sons, I truly don't want to teach any of them. Each one is mischievous to the extreme, none as well behaved as Jawa, but to marry Eugene. I endured it. Finally, with a grand wedding and a proper match, I have married the woman I have admired since that year. She now lies in the crook of my arm, gentle and serene, with soft and tender features. My fingers slowly trace her silhouette, my heart brimming with